Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show. As you see, sitting there smiling on the other side of the cockpit here, my co-pilot, once again, Matt Wilhelm. Matt Wilhelm, welcome back to the Tim May Show cockpit, my man.
Great to be with you, Tim, and a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. I mean, we've got a January. I've been covering Ohio State going on 41 years now, and have never seen a January like this. This is crazy. It's a kind of a home run January that Ryan Day and his staff needed to put together. We're going to get into that. Matt, let's just get right into it with you, man. How impressed have you been by Ohio State's January, and did it need this kind of January?
It did. I'm extremely impressed. I think we're setting the table appropriately to have a competitive battle at many positions. And again, it's like the basketball phrase: you only have one football. We've got what seems to be five capable quarterbacks now on the roster, given Aaron Noland and Julian Sand being added most recently. But I think, and I'm just going back to, for previous listeners, our follow-up to the Cotton Bowl, and a comment that every time Ohio State makes a move in January, I go back to this statement, and I'm probably not the only individual out there that said something similar to this, but the crossroads with which Ohio State football was at. Fresh off the loss, it was, you had the fire Ryan Day folks, you had the, get rid of Coach Fry folks, you had and it's like, full makeover of the coaching staff, and, who's going to stay, who's going to go. So much uncertainty about it. And they were at a crossroads, like after being 11-0 going into that game against the team up north and losing that game, and then coming out of that bowl game and the loss to Missouri. You'd love to say Ohio State football will always have an identity, but I think Ohio State football at that juncture kind of had no identity. And so other than producing elite level talent, into the National Football League.
Yeah.
Not winning championships, not really competing for championships, not beating Michigan on the regular, not representing, the Big Ten East in the Big Ten championship game. So it was like, well, who are we? Are we just a very good regular season football team? And gosh, you and I can probably go back, not even just college, but like what NBA teams and NFL teams are like, man, they run the table. It's like almost what Lamar and the Ravens have been, now that they're in the AFC championship game again. It's like Lamar, great franchise quarterback, just get in the playoffs and never really get it done. Right. Yeah. And that becomes your identity. And so that's it. All these changes. I love the, and I was going to say gun to your head, but like, I love the proactive, backed into a corner approach that Ryan Day and the Ohio State football staff and faculty have punched their way out of the corner. And I'm also not, especially as a former player, because again, I just jump back on X, and so I see some of what's being said about Ohio State and all of these moves from both former players, pundits that cover it day to day, such as yourself, and also some of the national folks. It's all fine and good, and I mean, believe me, having a top 5 recruiting class almost every year for the past decade has been great, but we have one national championship to show for that. So I love winning the offseason. Makes me feel real good. Makes me we have a lot of fun, interactive conversations with your buddies, with your Buckeye fan friends, with you, Tim, and all those folks around the nation that tune into this show. It's great. We're positioned appropriately, perfectly. I'm sure, Paul will probably shine a light on that. As you get with him, he'll be a much more realist as it pertains to Big Ten football, our conference changing, and as it relates to SEC, which is, most likely won 7 of the last 10 national championships. We're positioned perfectly. I still want to see some work on the offensive line, whether that's through the portal or not. I don't really know or care. I want to see development there because that's a necessity, regardless of who's toting the football or who perfectly. We're positioned perfectly. Development there because that's a necessity, regardless of who's toting the football or who's throwing it. You got to be able to protect that guy and open up the holes. But it's great to be a Buckeye, given all the hard work that Ryan Day and his staff and Pantoni and those guys have put in to accumulate this talent. I just want to hit the fast forward button and get to August so we can start seeing
I know, man.
it happen.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Is number one, you're winning the month of January. Everybody wants to get to August, but the point is to come back. And this is a comeback story. Even though Ohio State was 11-2 last year for the second straight year, it's a comeback story, and you can only take it one step at a time. And you have to give it up to Ohio State to this point, and that's what you just did, that they have taken, like you said, I've used this analogy many times. Ryan Day was backed into a corner, and there's two things you can do in a corner. You can either acquiesce, fall down, and surrender, or you come out throwing haymakers. And Ohio State is throwing haymakers. And
and go ahead.
But I wanted one of the first things when Ryan Day looked himself in the mirror on December the 30th, one of the things he had to come to grip with was, I got to make some staff changes. I mean, we got to get some players. That's always paramount. You win with people. Goes back to Woody Hayes, and before that, I mean, Chick Harley was a people. You know what I mean? Way back when.
Yeah.
But he had to make some staff changes. Those are always, I don't care who you are, how cold-blooded a person you might be, those are always hard to do. And obviously, we've seen some staff changes. I think the most significant, and I don't know if you agree or not, the most significant, I don't know why, my phone just keeps ringing off all kinds of things. The most significant was bringing in Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Yep.
Offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. We could talk about defensive side. Matt Guerrero, we all know who he is. He was at Ohio State before as basically a big-time assistant to Jim Knowles. Been with Jim Knowles for a while. He's come in to take Perry Eliano's place. Parker Fleming is gone. They haven't filled that spot yet. We'll see where it goes. But the bottom line is something had to be done offensively, and that's a big step for Ryan Day. Agreed?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I am a fan of the hire. And here's the reason why. This individual, and it was good enough for Nick Saban. It was good enough for Bill Belichick. And this man was good enough to go through the process of becoming a head football coach at Penn State, likely a program that is probably just a shade behind Ohio State, in the Big Ten, and a national program that, ends up in the top 25 or top 15 almost every year.
Yeah. And when he took it, it was in the dumper. Go ahead.
Sure. Absolutely. And I'll just say, and also go through the process to get a professional NFL coaching job. So it's hard. And I know there's some bad coaches out there. The Browns fans know that best, that you could cycle through head coaches, with the best of them. Yeah. But to be able to go through that interview process, validate X's and O's, and be a quarterback whisperer, but convey that you're a leader of men, that billionaires have to sign off on, paying this individual, $8 to $10 million a year to be the face of their franchise for the foreseeable future. Whether it is a long future or not is, yet to be determined by a lot of different things. But he checks all those boxes, that he was good enough for those four things that I mentioned. Regardless of how it ended or what happened throughout those, I don't throw those stones at Bill O'Brien. I see him as a guy who's got an edge about him, and always has, which I think will fit the mindset of Ohio State football in 2024, having an edge or getting back an edge, I will say, and playing with an edge and calling plays with an edge. And I think for Ryan Day, what I like about this hire also is, and if it actually, I don't think Bill O'Brien would actually come if it wasn't the case, is he's going to get some version of autonomy on offense by being the quarterback coach and now having those five guys that we alluded to, on this roster, the Howard kid, Keen Holes and Devin Brown, and the two, young kids. He's going to have some autonomy to be able to coach those guys and have a major hand in saying, that's my guy, or even next year in a 4-person competition, if they're all still here, this is the guy, this is the one, and this is the two, which takes big cojones to say when you have that much talent in a room. Yeah. Then I think also it allows Ryan Day, who the new president of Ohio State and the new athletic director and Gene Smith, who's probably still going to be around, had a hand in maintaining Ryan Day. He's going to be the CEO and be the leader of men and being able to spend more time in different positions and more times with Knowles and maybe more times with Fry on the offensive line and with Hartline in the wide receiver room, because he's got this trusted individual who this offensive coordinator / play caller / quarterback coach, the opportunity is not too big for him. He doesn't need to be micromanaged.
Yeah. Right.
So it allows, Ryan Day to deviate some of his time to recruit more. Not saying he's not recruiting, to just spend his time on other things while also making sure the overarching program is exactly where it needs to be and progressing as it needs to be. And one other thing that I just want to go back to really quick about all that's happened in January is, two other factors that we haven't discussed yet is, and I'm not even going to make one a big deal, is we spent a significant amount of money. So, props to, I'll say on whenever we were together on soon after the new year, all the Buckeye fans supporting all the collectives, the foundation and the 1870 Society and, ponying up to make some of those guys make it enough for them to want to stay and also for the guys to want to come. But this is the other thing, again, money aside, and only because I have like a soon to be recruitable athlete of my own. For some, that money might be a big factor, for kids coming where they're from. But I think it's also props to Ohio State football on what it represents in the collegiate football landscape.
Yeah.
I think props to Ohio State, the university itself, the education and the value of it, the culture there within the program. I think Columbus, Ohio, because these kids coming from the transfer portal, it's not like, hey, we'll give you $1 million, come to Ohio State, because other schools could likely do the same thing, but it wouldn't have the feel, the culture, the legacy, the winning that Ohio State does. So
yeah,
Ohio State in a nutshell, with this urgency that's been created because of what the last 3 years of, has meant, losing to Michigan, no Big Ten championships, no college football, well, one college football playoff appearance, but not winning a national championship. It's enticing to kids to want to come be a part of that edge, make some money doing it that supports the NIL, because that's a facet that I don't fully, wrap my head around.
Yeah, me neither.
Crazy.
But, yeah.
I know, but it's a part of it. It is what it is. But I just meant it's you have to look at, what other program is doing what Ohio State's doing. Yeah. And I also want to say this, and this is coming through a fact check, I think through X that I saw this morning, is everybody's making a big deal. And this is also props to Ryan Day and his staff is, 6 guys through the transfer portal. You get the Downs kid, former 5-star ACC freshman of the year, All-American teams. You get the McLaughlin kid from Alabama, the center. You get the Sayin kid to move over from Alabama. You get Howard to come from Kansas State, a top transfer portal quarterback.
Yeah.
Is you have to have like something going for you to have these kids want to come be a part of it.
You know what it's called? You know what it's called? It's called panache. Ohio State has got all the things that it needs to now compete in the transfer portal, but it also has on top of that the panache of being Ohio State, of being a traditional power, of being a place that, I'm not reading this off a brochure. I'm just telling you just from experience of covering this team, of developing talent and getting it to the NFL, of playing for championships, except for the last 3 years. But it's been in the running,
100%.
Exactly.
And Tim, my whole point is like we're getting all the love and the praise, and of course, some of the haters hating on us, but like 6 4-star and above level talents through the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Okay. Louisville has 26 kids entering their football program through the transfer portal. And there's a number of teams that have hit double digits and, and some close to 20. It's because of that panache that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the monies that these collectives have pulled together that has allowed us to go get 6 kids that are more valuable to our program that will help us win a championship than Louisville's 26 kids that might get them back to an ACC championship game.
Yeah. And keep this in mind. We can talk about numbers in the transfer portal who left Ohio State, who have come to Ohio State, but totally which should not be at all marginalized, is all the guys who decided to come back, who could have gone
Yeah.
elsewhere, who could have gone to the NFL and basically taken their shot there, not the least of whom are JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer and Emeka Egbuka.
Denzel
Write them
Burke.
down. Dude, that just tells you something about a program that there's something good going on there. I
Well,
mean,
it's Columbus, it's the university, it's the program. I think it's also it's your teammates, it's the coaches and the
mission
relationship
left
that you have.
unfinished.
Yeah, 100%. And again, if we're trying to mimic what Michigan did last year to go win their national championship that they did this year with all those 22-year-olds coming back to be 23-year-olds in college for a fifth year of eligibility, to go to undo the TCU game, to go advance in the college football playoff, beat Ohio State again, all those other great things. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like we're running it back to take our best shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To do that very same thing. And it's like, and so what? And I guess, and I'm not trying to hit the fast forward button, because as I kind of opened with, okay, we're filling the cupboards really, really full with an immense amount of talent. I want to fast forward to August and see them go do it. I also want, I think, for Ryan Day now in that CEO role with these trusted advisors, Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, Hartline as a co, and a wide receivers coach, is like, how do you sustain it?
Yeah.
You get the kids to come. You've proven what Columbus and Ohio State football represents. There's money in the NIL collectives. You can win in the transfer portal. You're still going to win with the high school kids selling what you're selling. How can, and now I think 5 quarterbacks at the talent level that we have with 1 football, 2 running backs at the talent level that we have, 1 football, 7 receivers, 4-star and above, 1 football, 4 safeties, of the talent level that we have, really 2 spots, maybe 3 spots if one converts to a nickel, right?
Yeah.
And have those all be winning performances without being 1 play away from putting in a guy who's just as talented as me.
Yeah. Here's what you do is you go through spring ball, and we're going to talk about this when we come back in a little while, but you go through spring ball, then you keep your fingers crossed through the late April transfer portal window, 15 days in late April, that some of these guys don't necessarily leave, or maybe some guys do leave. Maybe you need them to leave. You know what I mean? But then I'm telling you, dude, anymore, you were in the NFL. You played in 12 NFL playoff games, 10 or 12. You won a Super Bowl. You understand you got to play for this year. College football is no longer, you got to stockpile as much talent as you can get for the future, but nothing's guaranteed future wise anymore. No. You got to play for this season. And Ryan Day and his staff, Ohio State has embraced that now, as opposed to trying to basically build for the future, but also help yourself in the transfer portal. It is now about this season. This is the season that matters, because next season is not promised, if you follow my drift. And I think it's remarkable that I always say when Ohio State, I'm talking about Ohio State, the entity, flexes its muscle, everybody starts rowing in the same direction. It's an awesome sight. I've said that way back in the 1990s, and it definitely is, right?
It is, and I think, like as I said, it's very collaborative. I think Ryan Day a year ago, likely on the Buckeye cruise, a month or 2 ahead of the 1870th Society even being created. It was just an idea of men coming together to do a for-profit entity that becomes like the arm in arm, lock and step collective of Ohio State football and the Ohio State University, and to see it grow in less than 9 months. And I also think that, would we be where we're at had we beaten Michigan this year? Had we beaten Iowa in the Big Ten championship? Like, would there be this backed into a corner urgency to go out and we kind of feel like, would McCord still be our quarterback had we won that game? So there's a lot of ifs that have gotten us to this point. And I think when this plan is orchestrated and executed from August through November, we'll look back on these conversations, look back on these times, and I think for, all those people throwing mud at Ryan Day, He was backed into a corner, and the same Ryan Day that we got after the Notre Dame win is the same Ryan Day we got after losing to Missouri, punching his way out of a corner, making Ohio proud of him, delivering the goods in January, but then also delivering the goods in November as well.
Yeah. You never know what kind of fire department you've got until the bell goes off and people have to get on the truck. And it looks like
Ohio State's security.
It's like Ohio State's got a pretty good fire department. By the way, just want to slip this in there. What's coming at Ohio State is going to be a big time season. I think we all know that, and in some form or fashion. In gametime.co, the Game Time app, that's the place to go, ladies and gentlemen. Already, you can probably reserve a ticket or two for Ohio State football coming up in late August, the start of the season, which promises to be one of the more memorable seasons in Ohio State football history. But I told you folks a week ago, man, and a lot of you responded. Iowa and Iowa was coming to town with Caitlin Clark, and a place to get tickets for that was on the Game Time app. I mean, we're talking about triple-digit tickets, Matt Wilhelm, for an Ohio State women's basketball game, and then the people who took advantage of that, they saw history. I mean, over 18,000 people showed up for that game, one of the great games in Ohio State women's basketball history. And the same thing goes right now. I mean, you got U.S. figure skating champions coming to town this week. I'm on the Game Time app right now. They don't even really list the price because you don't really want to know what it takes to get into a U.S. figure skating championships. There are people who really care about that stuff, ladies and gentlemen. You got the Columbus Blue Jackets playing on February the 10th, a $49 get-in ticket price on the Game Time app, gametime.co. And remember, if you download the Game Time app and you use the promo code Buckeyes for your first purchase, you'll get $20 off that first purchase. And also remember the Game Time app's big time guarantee, which is like no other. You find a ticket in the same row, the same section, general section of where you are, for less money than you paid on the Game Time app, Game Time will refund you 110% of the difference. That's a hell of a deal. And of course, terms apply with any kind of guarantee. We all know that, read the fine print. But the bottom line is gametime.co, Game Time app is the place to go, the fastest growing aftermarket ticket site in the country. Game Time, the Game Time app, that's the place to go. You know what, Matt, people can talk about camps, 7-on-7 competitions, right on down the line. Everybody has a quarterback guru now or a linebacker guru they work with in the offseason. But high school coaches, as you well know, they're the backbone still of development of football players and bringing them more ready to play than ever to the college ranks, right?
They absolutely are. And, props to all the high school coaches across the country. And a lot of it is because it's so different than college, where you go out and handpick the kids, to come play for you. And eventually, in some cases, smaller schools, you offer, you kind of get who you get, but you're still happy, and you've watched the tape and you've validated that they're worthy of the offer from your school. At the high school level, you get the kid that just shows up, especially at a public school. Private school is a little bit more handpicked, a little bit more like college, but for a public school to just take these kids, mold these kids, I think it'd be for the commoner or even for some of the parents of high school kids to know what these coaches are being paid for, the thousands of hours that they're investing into your sons and the game that they love is significant. And it's, something I'm always grateful for because, I also love the process. I love the process. And so I'm actually very interested to hear what, that has to say about Julian Sand, because to be the number one ranked quarterback in the country, I have not watched a clip. So I'm going to run to his highlights. I'm going to hear what he has to say to know. And I think because as a Buckeye fan, I watched some Aaron Nolan highlights. I saw them, on television a couple of times this year.
Yeah.
I think we saw, Lincoln Kienholz, play Kienholz, what I said. We saw little snippets of Devin Brown. You see the Howard kid at Kansas State. So where does he stack up? Where does he fit? But also, as you kind of led into this conversation with him, the one thing that, pops into my head again, it goes back to it's to come from Carlsbad, California to Columbus, Ohio. There's got to be a why behind it. Okay. Yeah. You did that from Tuscaloosa. so much of that has to do with Nick Saban. So much of that has to do with, national championships and winning and the SEC. But, okay, you go back on that decision. Why? When you have USC and UCLA, you got Washington and Oregon right in your backyard. They're going to compete in the Big Ten. Why Ohio State? So a lot of what Ryan Day and his staff are putting out there, and let's say the word again.
What? Panache?
Panache. And the panache that Ohio State represents in college football, I think is unmatched, which is just something different when it comes to recruiting these kids.
And that's why Ryan Day revamping his staff, Ryan Day stepping away from the offensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator El Primo, you know what I mean? Because obviously Brian Hartline was the offensive coordinator running the day-to-day meetings for the offensive staff last year. But stepping away and hiring Bill O'Brien has already paid huge dividends because, as you know, Julian Sayin committed to Bill O'Brien and Nick Saban 2 years ago at Alabama, when the Alabama coaching staff sort of obviously Bill O'Brien stepped away from there and went back to New England for the 2023 season. But boom, all of a sudden he's in Columbus, Ohio. Julian Sayin, who Ohio State finished pretty much runner-up to 2 years ago, the guy he committed to is at Ohio State, Bill O'Brien. The head coach he committed to is no longer coaching football, Nick Saban. It's funny. Serendipity is a real thing. Serendipity happens every day in life. And what has brought Julian Sayin to Ohio State to bring about what I think is going to be one of the great spring football practice sessions, a group of sessions in almost history when it comes to the quarterback position. I wanted to ask you this, Matt, before we go. How do you handle 5 quarterbacks in that kind of situation? I mean, what do you do with these guys? Because they all came in one form or fashion, ballyhooed,
Yeah, of course. Well, I think first and foremost, and this is, again, me putting on my coach's hat as if I were in that decision, as if I were Bill O'Brien, and I guess having been cognizant of Bill O'Brien and all of his stops as either a head coach or a coordinator or quarterback coach at all of his stops, seems to me he's even the FU session with Tom Brady, that has been running since we've hired Bill O'Brien.
Oh, by the way, I want to warn people, if you're squeamish about the F word, you don't want to, just go watch Hard Knocks with Bill O'Brien and Mike Vrabel.
Oh, dude. You just got to spend one day in a
don't make it a drinking game.
Professional locker room.
Yeah, don't make it a drinking game. You will lose. Go ahead now.
But I just think that he's going to be direct. He's going to be. He's not going to mince words, and it's not that he's going to abuse these kids. So the first meeting, in my mind, if I have these immense talented players, is all of them, even to get them here and to get them to stay, the ego's got to be left outside the room, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what star recruit you are. I don't care what you did last year in Kansas State. I don't care where you committed. I don't care what the bowl game is. This is what the bowl game looked like, what you thought you could have done in the bowl game, then you get hurt. All that goes out the door. It's like, and you start them all like level playing field, because you get a 5-star like Julian Sayin, who actually might show up and look better initially than, the Kansas State transfer kid in the first week of practice.
Yeah.
But it's like, you've got to develop a flow. So I think ego at the door. I think we're going to compete, the iron sharpens iron mentality for this room. And then I think this is where it's going to be collaborative, where Bill O'Brien and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline collectively stand in front of maybe even just the offensive room and go, these are the boxes that we're looking to check at this position and as a group.
Yeah.
And if you help us check those boxes, you're in the competition to be the dude, because we have time on our side now, it being January.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you'll know and we'll know that those boxes aren't being checked. So it's going to be very clear what's good enough and what's not, because that's what competition should breed. So again, I know that the parents of these kids will likely get involved, whether they're a starter or not, and you'll hear from them before you hear from the players, but they're in one ear. Then they're going to the building every day at the Woody trying to practice with mom and dad in the ear about, are you still third string? Blah, 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 blah. It's, that's just the nature of being human, right?
Yeah.
But I think put your head down, go to work. If you're actually elite, as a player, that means you also likely have an elite mindset. So how you approach competition and the fact that you don't back away from it is where I want to see these five thrive, kind of growing together. And at the end of the day, be best friends, but let the best man win. That's going to go out and help us win the most football games.
Yeah. And the reason quarterback position is the hardest to evaluate, in my opinion, when you have like souls, meaning guys who, for one reason or another, are 4 and 5 stars, is you never truly know who the guy is or whether the guy you pick is the guy until you start playing real football, which in college football isn't until this coming season, late August, season opener, August 31.
And truthfully, Tim, I would love, and I'm just going to throw this out there. I would love to not have to see Julian Sand or Aaron Nolan play a game at Ohio State.
I'm with you.
And the reason why I say it is because the other guys with a year or two in the program and a guy that's played college football for 4.5 years.
Yeah, Will Howard
has
won a championship. Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
That are just that much better than these fresh out of high school kids. So there should be a gap. And these kids should be closing that gap, but those guys should just think on another level. Their body should be at another level. You know, the fact that they can manage school and football and life and NIL money and all those things that these kids are going to have to adjust to while going out and practicing and having strong practices day after day after day after day to try to, win that competition. There should be a gap.
Yeah.
And that's why the comment that I threw in, like the one football comment, what happens next year, even though I know the focus is on 2024, it's you get rid of, Howard leaves, I have a feeling in my gut that, one of the other two Ohio State quarterbacks that we saw in the bowl game, they both can't stay. They're going to see the writing on the wall, and it's just not mathematically going to be good for them to stay a Buckeye, which stinks, but it's the nature of the business that they'll naturally leave. And then I think between Air and Julian, one of them will, the athleticism and the playmaking ability of Aaron Nolan and the pocket passing of Julian Sand. It's like, what offense does Bill O'Brien want to run now?
Yeah.
Becomes a big factor in the 2025 season on who that next year starter would be.
And I guarantee you this, though, Ryan Day is going to assert, and I'm sure Bill O'Brien will go for this because it does make the difference in college football. He's going to assert he wants his quarterback involved in the running game in some form or fashion, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot more with Will Howard, who knows, but that factor was missing the last 2 years, really, until C.J. Stroud brought it out against Georgia, but it was missing this past year. Devin Brown brought it, but then all of a sudden he got hurt.
And Tim, changed. I'll just say this. Look at the 4 quarterbacks remaining at the NFL level. Mahomes has done that more and more as his career has gone on. Josh Allen has done that almost more and more as that big arm is only so big, but when you're dropping 8 every time, you got to take off and run. And then I even see if you watch the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense versus the Lions, Jared Goff took off and ran the ball with backs turned and gets a first down with his legs. So you look at the mindset behind winning football is making great decisions from the pocket, having a rocket arm, and then being, keeping a play alive, having, wide receivers lock in step with you on breaking free from coverage or man in zone. Finding little windows, but then taking off and run it and getting a first down. Yeah. And not always have to make a play with your arm.
Yeah. As I keep saying, you not only have to have a quarterback who can run, you have to have a quarterback who will run, and there's a big difference in there sometimes. You run 5 times a game. It changes everything about the defense. It changes everything about what they have to be aware of, et cetera. And I preached that all through the C.J. Stroud years, and finally against Georgia, it showed up big time. I mean, and too bad, things went the way they did there with the injuries, et cetera, and especially in that fourth quarter. But it was, like you said, man, it's crazy. I mean, you've got to go and I've got to go, but it opens a Pandora's box every time you think back to that game and just what that fourth quarter meant to the Ohio State football program and where you sit today with the program now pushed into a corner and coming out throwing punches. If that field goal had been good, if Ohio State hadn't given up those points in the fourth quarter to Georgia and hung on and won that game and then beaten TCU, the ifs are there, but you can't concern yourself with the ifs. It's all about the next step you take. And just your last thought, Ohio State has taken a massive step in January. Agreed?
Agreed. And I think it's the pride that I have in the program with Ryan Day as its leader to be, again, it's ad nauseum now, backed into the corner, given all the what could have happened. If this play or that play were made and things went different, we wouldn't even be in a corner. You know,
Right.
we'd be up on a pedestal, you know, as we kind of
You'd be in the
always
center
think.
of the ring, arms raised. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be in the same mindset that we've always thought of this program. But
Yeah.
the second that it wasn't good enough, the second that like enough is enough became a thing about this program and we were at a crossroads, all we did was put our head down and go to work. And I
Yeah.
love that about this staff.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Matt Wilhelm, co-pilot extraordinaire. I'm not sure when he's ever going to get his true wings. Sooner probably rather than later, but this is Tim May, the Tim May Show pilot, Matt Wilhelm, the co-pilot. Matt, thanks for joining me again, my man.
My pleasure, brother. Anytime.
And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you then.